Hey everybody, this is Tim. I am at the University of Georgia with the wonderful Brett Bawcum. Brett, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Thanks for taking time to talk to me on game day. It's game day?
Absolutely, it is game day, the last home game of the year.
Right, so you guys are playing Texas A&M.
A&M. Mm-hmm.
Pretty big game.
It is a very big game in a lot of respects. We don't play them that often. It's the first time since they entered the conference that we've played them, and we won't see them again, I believe, until it's going to be several years, maybe 6 years from now. The first time they've been here, I believe, since like 1980. So it's been a while. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Okay, so one of the main things I want to talk about is how hard college students work on game day. Like, it's a long day. Yeah. It's a lot of hours. I don't think everybody knows. So do you want to sort of describe what the day is like for you and your staff and the members of the band?
Yeah, so home games are hard enough in and of themselves. Do you want me to look in the camera or do you want me to look at you?
You can do it either way you want to. I'll stay here.
Okay, that sounds good. Weird. That's good. Hopefully I gave you an edit there. Home games are pretty rough in and of themselves. Basically, we start 7 hours before kickoff. We've been through a week of rehearsal, and that's not really accurate. You've been through 3 days of rehearsal at the most when you get to that point, and you probably haven't had the whole band at a rehearsal at any point that week. Because there is more to life there's more to life than band, apparently. Wait,
but that even happens in college. Because I think band directors in high school always struggle with that because we want students to be well-rounded, but it's also we want them at our rehearsals.
Yeah. Well, so we're about 20% music majors right now, and one of the reasons we're able to even have music majors is that we have a supportive applied faculty. But there's a trade-off there, and that is that they have to be able to do other things, and we support that.
Right.
But that means that we definitely have to get together on game day, make sure anything we've changed that week has been taken care of. If they're suddenly, we've got about 10 kids this morning who have something like the flu, and that's not that uncommon in a band of 430 people. So you got to fix those
430 people. Yeah, giant ensemble.
Right.
So what's it like to wrangle that many students, and especially when they're in college, so they're not all sort of, in high school they're very organized. You see them all the time. So what's it like? How different is it?
It's a completely different monster. You, number one, largely have to rely on them. They're adults, ostensibly, and so for the most part, you've got to rely on them to be where they're supposed to be. We rely on electronic anything. It could, email apps like Teams or Slack. The GroupMe is a very big thing here. I would bet there are probably 20 GroupMes affiliated with the band. So it's
ways to organize communication
and then get on top of things as early as you can. But one of the things that complicates that is the influence of television. We don't typically know a kickoff time, with a few exceptions. We typically don't know the kickoff time of a game until 13 days in advance. And twice a year, we don't know it until 6 days in advance. It's called a 6-day option. So if that had happened this week, we would have found out last Sunday what time this game would kick off, anywhere from noon to about 8 p.m. So that affects, obviously, the entire game day.
And that's a giant variable for you to deal with on game day.
It is.
Okay, the students not only have them get up in the morning, do the rehearsal, have the whole game, but there's all these other activities that go on around the game that I don't think people realize, like different ensembles, pep bands. So you want to talk about some of that?
Absolutely, sure. So on a typical game day, we're going to start, I mentioned that rehearsal, it's 6.5 to 7 hours before. We finish that up in about an hour and a half, and then we're over at the stadium about 4.5 hours before kickoff. And several of our sections will do different things. We have the drum line does a warm-up that's become a show. It's theoretically still a warm-up, but people come watch, and it's really the highlight of their day.
Sort of like the lot.
Absolutely. It's the same thing.
And what? Bulldog fans are hanging around before the game, not much, killing time. Tailgating, why not see the drumline play?
Absolutely.
That's entertainment.
And then the sousaphones hopped on that and said we should do the same thing, and so now they've got their own show.
Yeah, I'm going to hopefully see the sousaphone show in a little bit.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And then we do something called the dog walk, and there are many variations on this, and I know we're not the first for sure around the country. But basically that's 2 hours and 15 minutes before kickoff. We form a giant tunnel with a good day, about 15,000 other people, and the team walks through to the stadium, and it's wild. And then after that, we basically have started the activities that basically are the game. Although these days, we're coming back inside for a few minutes, giving them a little bit more time to rest and eat if they haven't already done it. Then we march into the stadium with 75 minutes remaining on the clock.
The dog walk.
The dog walk.
That is super clever. Like, whoever thought of that, my hat's off to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about weather, because it is raining today, and during the game, it's supposed to be sort of a downpour.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've all been there, but like you got to be there,
Right.
Right. So it's not like you can say, "Well, we're just gonna not." No, like you're there. So
right.
how does that work for you guys?
Carefully.
How does that change your day?
Well, today, for instance, we have been planning for the last several months to do a 13-minute pregame show and to do a 6-minute halftime show. And we found out yesterday afternoon at 3 o'clock that we would not be on the field at all for halftime, and that we would only be on the field for that we could get on the field for the entirety of pregame, but they asked us to move the minimum amount. So we changed. Basically, we pulled. I'd say pregame is probably 20 sets. We basically turned it into a 3-set show in 30 minutes.
So obviously it's the grass, the field, was a big concern. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to get to do your show. Are you going to play it from the stands, or what are you going to do?
So the halftime show, we will play it from the stands, and this is the last shot we had at home, which is kind of a bummer. But it does. Yeah. You get to a point where, I mean, we'll do 5-6 different shows of some kind in a given season. You get used to that. It's the cost of doing business. You just know that sometimes you're going to plan this, and it's going to be great, and then nobody's ever going to see it, at least not at home. But now, we will do this show, though. We'll do this for the SEC Championship game.
I was going to say, you have more games to come.
And this is specifically...
Quite possibly national championship games, maybe.
We'll see.
Okay.
And so we've had to consider that, too, in the design of this show. We found out 2 years ago when we were in the title game that we got tired of what we were playing, and the show wasn't terribly demanding. And, we can't encounter a level of demand like you see in high school bands. And
you just said you're doing 6 shows?
That's it. So they have to be easier. They
have to be simpler,
right.
Yeah.
So that means you've obviously got to be really intelligent about how you design them, and you got to pick your spots when you're going to do things that are hard, and write very intelligently for every instrument so that it sounds great but still is not terribly difficult. But in this third show, we found in 2017, between the Rose Bowl and then the national title game, we'd been playing that show for 6 weeks, and that might not sound like much, but that's an eternity in college band when you're talking about a band that plays more than one show a year. Yeah. So we designed the third show so we can add things to it as we go through the postseason. It's called Women of Pop, and I think it's a really cool show.
Very smart.
And it's I'd say it's probably 75% done in terms of what's going in, but in terms of its longevity, it's finished.
So
we can add some things.
Add change.
Mm-hmm.
That's very smart planning.
Yeah.
I do want to mention how much I was so impressed and fell in love with this show about the mixtape.
Yeah.
This was genius. I put it on social media. You guys can see it, and you guys can find it. Like, how many people are in the stadium? Like 80, 90,000?
Yeah, so the stadium holds 92,700 people.
Okay, so there were 92,000 people singing along at the top of their lungs I thought this was absolute genius.
Thank you.
Like, how did you guys come up with that? I just thought it was so smart.
So there's no way we were the first, but I'd never heard of anybody doing it. And I've kind of been obsessed with people singing along with us for a while. There's a part of our pregame show where we try to get them to sing Fight Song, and it's been moderately successful, but we thought, if you get tunes that they know, they're likely to be able to do this. And we'd kind of gotten into a rut for a while of, we'll take this rock band and do 3 of their charts. And then, so we got to a point where we wanted to do something a little different. So we said, okay, we're going to do a sing-along show. So it's tunes that people commonly sing along with. And we messed around trying to figure out what those tunes were going to be. And then somebody pointed out that Notre Dame game was on the 21st night of September, which is that classic line from the beginning of the song by Earth, Wind & Fire.
September!
There you go.
So, and everybody sang along?
Everybody sang along.
So
then we realized this is a Gen X show. So then we realized, well, you can do more than one of these, right? So now it's a series, and the first one was called Sanford Sing Along, Gen X edition. So
it's going to be a series.
So down the line, we'll do a Boomer edition. We'll do a Millennial edition. We'll do, there's all kinds of different possibilities. But the first one, went really well. So we knew they would know those 3 tunes, and September fit right into it.
And the first one was Living on a Prayer. And I can tell you, if you listen to that video, everybody's singing along. I was really moved by it. I thought, this is so exciting. We want to engage our audiences. Yeah. And you guys hit it out of the park.
They got the modulation too. Did you notice that? Yes. They got the key change.
The crowd was fantastic, and they had so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to tell you, I think that was a total home run for your team.
Thank you. We were really, really proud of it.
Great.
I will tell you this: if anybody else decides to do it, there are a few things that were critical to it.
Oh, good.
One was we had to get out in front of it from a publicity standpoint. So about a month in advance, we had our media team create a graphic, and on the spur of the moment, the kids had set up a makeshift studio in somebody's apartment, put a sheet up as the background and had one of our great mellophone players, who's also a fantastic clarinet player, sing into an old school radio mic, and they turned this into this great graphic, and then they put the title Sanford Sing Along right up there with it. And so we turned that into a social media graphic. Then we had several yard signs made the week of the game. About 6 hours before kickoff, had alums and friends putting them out on the path to the stadium so people would know, keep your seats at halftime and do this with us.
Cool.
We created graphics for the lyrics that we put on the board. So
right,
that was really
the
helpful.
thing. The words were up for everybody to sing along, which I thought was a very smart touch.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing, though, was that we put the songs very close to their original key. Now, that's tricky.
I wondered about that.
It is tricky.
I wondered about it, but it did sound right because everybody. That's because people know them. They would be more likely to sing.
Yeah, they know they know. They don't know that they know the key, but they do know it. If you play it in a substantially different key, they're going to go, "That's weird." And I've seen it happen. And so I think it's
November, September. Yeah,
It's not going to work. That's
so,
the right key.
But you get, if it's in G, put it in A flat. It can work. It can be just fine, and it worked fine for us. Now we also scored the melody very heavily, and so this is not a chart that I'd typically play somewhere else. I played in that situation, but if you play it somewhere where people aren't going to sing along, it's super melody heavy. It's not the way I really
because you wanted the audience to make sure they could find it, have it. Well, anyway, I thought it was a total
Thank
home
you very
run.
much. We were real proud of
you
it.
guys should really, everybody should try it. Think about trying
It's a blast.
this.
You'll love it.
It was so great, and the audience really was engaged. All right, well, good luck in the rain.
Thank you.
I'm sorry you're not going to get out on the field at halftime. I'm really disappointed about that for you too, but I know you have more games to come.
Yeah, we do.
And it's senior day.
It is senior day.
Your sort of last game, home game for a lot of students.
That's right.
So you're doing great work.
Thank you very much. I
Thanks for
appreciate
taking
it.
the time to talk to me. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks everybody.
Find all Marching Roundtable videos and interviews from our trip to the University of Georgia at marchingartseducation.com/UGA.